Sunday Baroque Conversations is made possible by the Friends of Sunday Baroque and is produced at WSHU Public Radio in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm Suzanne Bona. Thanks for listening. Don't miss an episode of Sunday Baroque Conversations. Subscribe on Apple, Google, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review. If you want to find out where you can listen to our weekly show, visit our website, sundaybaroque.org, for a station list and our 24/7 stream. Again, that's sundaybaroque.org. Grammy Award-winning Catalyst Quartet was founded in 2010 by the internationally acclaimed Sphinx organization. The quartet's members hold degrees from the Cleveland Institute of Music, Curtis Institute of Music, the Juilliard School, New England Conservatory, and they are founded on their belief in the unity that can be achieved through music, and imagine their programs and projects with this in mind, redefining and reimagining the classical music experience. Now, Catalyst Quartet has an ongoing recording project called Uncovered, and Catalyst Quartet cellist Karlos Rodriguez joins me on Zoom to talk about the group's Uncovered project. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for making time. So let's just kind of start from the beginning, and why don't you explain what is the basic premise of this Uncovered series?
Well, in 2018, we had been hearing music more often than not by friends of ours at a summer chamber music festival. And we're just blown away left and right by the extreme craftsmanship and inspiration that these composers were bringing to their work. And we were sort of like, well, why aren't there any recordings? Why isn't this music played more often? And we should just record all of this stuff, like no brainer. Mm-hmm. This was music by Florence Price and George Walker and Coleridge-Taylor Perkinson and the composers that make up the Uncovered project, which highlights historically important Black composers. Mm-hmm. Now, originally, we thought it was going to be one album, and it was just like, let's just do this. Like, it's important and it's great music. So happy we called it Uncovered, because now it's probably going to be a 4-volume anthology of recordings. Mm-hmm. So the most recent one being Volume 3, released this past February.
Fantastic. So why don't you could you go through like whose music is on each of the volumes?
Volume 1 features the music of Samuel Coleridge-Taylor, and we are joined by 2 of our great friends and collaborators for Samuel Coleridge-Taylor's Clarinet Quintet, and that is Anthony McGill with us on the album. Yeah. And then we also are joined by Stuart Goodyear, an incredible Canadian pianist, for Samuel Coleridge-Taylor's Piano Quintet. And then there's a set of fantasy pieces for a quartet alone, and that's on Volume 1. Mm-hmm. Volume 2 is the entire chamber music catalog of Florence B. Price. If this were released in CDs the way that we used to go to CD stores, it would be a two disc set. It's a lot of music, and there are 2 piano quintets on that release, and we're joined by pianist Michelle Kahn for that release. And Volume 3 is now 3 different composers, exclusively string quartets. We have the incredible William Grant Still, Coleridge-Taylor Perkinson, and George Walker.
Do you have any personal favorites? Some really good cello licks on any of them that you really relish?
The Samuel Coleridge-Taylor Piano Quintet is a lot of fun to play.
Is it?
The second movement of the Clarinet Quintet is really beautiful. Mm-hmm. There are some special fiery endings of on the Florence Price album, which are a lot of fun to play. Mm-hmm. Those are super fun to play live also, because the audience just goes mad for them. Mm-hmm. And on this Volume 3, I think every one of these pieces is stunning. I mean, there are just moments and movements across the board that are deeply profound. I can think of like the ending of the Perkinson string quartet, or sorry, of the George Walker string quartet is just magic. It's just this beautiful, shimmering soundscape. It's just incredible. The slow movement from that quartet, George Walker's quartet, also just super beautiful, and just the harmonic language is incredible. Rhythmically, the Perkinson quartet is just it's dynamite, and the personal element of the William Grant Still movements are just very touching.
Can you elaborate on that, the personal elements?
Yes, well, the piece has been attributed in two different ways, but the way that we have chosen to present the piece is as a portrait for three friends. And we don't know who these people are. It's not like Elgar's Enigma Variations where, there are these secret names that are built in. But it's, the quiet one, the sentimental one, the jovial one. And the way that he uses the melodies and the harmonies and the rhythm, and the timing, just the way he uses those to encapsulate what we like to imagine a quiet friend would be like, or a jovial friend. And I always am very touched when composers write music for friendship, because Mozart did it. People have been doing it for a long time. And I think it's a beautiful thing, because more often than not, composers are being paid to write something for somebody paying the bill. But when you're writing music for friends, I think it's special, and I think it takes extra attention on the part of the performer to sort of highlight that element.
Sure. And then, of course, chamber music really at its finest is when you have a group of friends, as you are. That really takes the performance to the next level when you can do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So would you mind talking a little bit about the dynamics between you and your fellow Catalyst Quartet members?
Oh, sure. The quartet's been playing for, next season will be our 13th season. And we've done this for a long time, and it's definitely, we spend more time with each other than people spend with their families or spouses, or at home. It has to be, there has to be respect. There has to be, it has to be a challenging relationship, because that's where excellence starts. And, there has to be, it's a business relationship. It's a personal relationship. It's, I think the string quartet and chamber music is sort of a model for society when it works well.
Healthy relationship. Yeah. I would love to focus a little bit on that quote of, I guess, what you'd call your mission statement, because I think it's really intriguing to me. We believe in the unity that can be achieved through music. So can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I think that's really intriguing.
For sure. Thank you. Well, I think, with our programming in the quartet, we like to tell stories through music. We like to focus on a specific element of, like, maybe a time in history, or an art movement, or a country, or a group of composers. There's something specific which we will elaborate on. But then what we do after that is we find music that supports this storyline, or this thing that we're trying to investigate. And unfortunately, most musical organizations, musicians, choose to look at specific music by a very select group of composers. And for us, we look at all of the music. And even when pieces that we find would support whatever we're trying to prove or investigate aren't written for the string quartet, we'll arrange them for the string quartet, like we did with Bach's Goldberg Variations. And so we like to tell the whole story. And so in that, there is unity, because we are using all of the music, and we are involving all of the musical voices that are available to us, and not excluding musicians because of gender or race or ethnicity. it's a more complete story. And also focusing that way on music, on great music, period, it can bring people together because people can identify with certain composers, with people from certain backgrounds, where they can feel represented and bring them into a space where maybe they didn't feel that they belonged before because people weren't representing them musically. And so for us, that's a way to bring unity. And in our troubled times, there's one thing I think we can all pretty much agree on, is that we all love music. And if we just look at that as our central, unifier, I think that we might be able to come together a little bit more easily and more often.
I think, in addition to unity, what I see when I see musicians like your group that are striving, again, to be, more inclusive, to really reach out and search through all of the available music, is that that's where excellence is achieved, right? Because you don't achieve the height of excellence by only, to use the metaphor, like fishing in the small pond, right? You have to fish in the whole pond. And if you haven't done that, then you can't truly say that you've explored the full experience of human genius and creativity and excellence. So I think that that's one of the things it does as well, is it elevates the level of excellence that we can enjoy as music lovers when you really fish in the whole pond.
I think that's beautifully said. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So what else? So what's going to be on Volume 4 of Uncovered?
Volume 4 will be devoted to the string quartets of Joseph Bellone, the Chevalier de Saint George.
Ah, yeah. Talk about him a little bit. He's quite a figure in music.
Quite a figure. He could be a miniseries. He's going to be a movie. He could be on MTV.
Right.
A dynamic individual, a trailblazer for enslaved people during the French Revolution, honored as such, commissioned Haydn to write symphonies, was a wizard violinist, an incredible fencer, lived a short life, wrote a lot of music. It's traveled all over. It's just, he's a dynamic individual. And his string quartets, of which we just performed all 6 of one set, there are a lot of string quartets, and there are some that we're still having to find, which live in libraries in Europe, which is why Volume 4 might be slightly delayed. Also, funding for Volume 4 is challenging, as it has been for all of these releases. But they're virtuosic. I mean, he's a wizard, and the quartets are no exception. Yeah.
You raised a really good point, and I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that too, because you all are called upon not only to be technically and artistically proficient as performers, but also to be scholars, because you have to do this research. You have to find the music. You have to know where to look to find it if you find out about it. And you talked about some libraries and whatnot. So what's that process like?
Exactly. So it's all well and good to go to your music library or online or Amazon and order a set of Beethoven string quartets. I think everyone could probably figure out how to do that. But how do you find a piece that you've only heard might exist, and no one really knows for sure if it does? So this has been the case for us for the entire Uncovered project, which is where it gets its name. Really, in the essence, we're not uncovering great composers as much as we're uncovering their work and finding it somehow. The most challenging album for that was the Florence Price album, because there are pieces on that album where a number of works on that album where they are world premiere recordings. They've never been recorded. And we were working off of her manuscript, like her actual handwriting. From the University of Arkansas Library, which holds her manuscripts. A lot of her music is being slowly also published, but published in a way that's a little bit challenging, because there are some wrong notes and wrong rhythms, and so that's a little bit hard. So we have to figure out, even when it's published, is this actually correct? And we'll reference her manuscripts for the published work and find out, no, that's not supposed to be a flat, it's supposed to be a natural. Or this bar is supposed to be repeated, or this bar is, there are notes that she added to this bar that, in a sketch. So there's a lot of that goes on. And talking to friends, I mean, it's taken overseas, domestically, it's taken a village to put these together. And we're also trying to help others through these albums when they want to play this music, to guide them in the right direction. But it is a scholarly endeavor. And it's kind of never ending.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You also referenced earlier the recording of the Goldberg variations. So that is in some ways an anomaly, right? So you've done this music by this very well-known, well-established composer, Johann Sebastian Bach. Could you talk a little bit about how you chose to do that?
Absolutely. So the genesis of that album was kind of just combing through music and finding out what's out there that we don't know about. And we were in California. We were in Gilroy, California, the garlic capital of our country, I believe. And we were pulling into a gas station, and for some reason we discovered that Glenn Gould has one published opus, and it's a string quartet. And so we were like, what is that piece like? We all have grown up loving and being fascinated by Glenn Gould and the quartet, and in particular his Goldberg Variations 1955 recording, which I think was kind of a big benchmark for him. And so we were like, well, how do we program this quartet? Like, what goes with this piece? Because it's a very dense work. It's a single movement through a composed 40 minutes of music. What goes with this? And we were like, I guess we have to arrange the Goldberg Variations, because it would be our first album too, as the Goldberg Variations was for Glenn Gould. And so there were a lot of tie-ins to debut albums, and we could have chosen a number of different things, but for some reason we felt that, as string players playing in a string quartet, we love Bach because we grew up playing Bach individually, but then there are no string quartets by Bach. The string quartet as a genre didn't exist until Haydn. And so it was sort of like, why not do this? Why not arrange the Goldberg Variations for string quartet in a very string quartet way where everyone's playing all of the time?
Right.
It's almost like Olympic ping pong with all the counterpoint. And so we didn't leave any notes out. We didn't add any notes. Everything's in its original voice. We use a lot of extended string techniques to sound like other instruments. And so, yeah, that's how that came about. Oh. And it's always, we just performed it a bunch last December, and it's always something very special to come back to, because the work that it took to do that was a lot, and it's good to remember that accomplishment. But it's also just such incredible music.
Yeah. Bach really is kind of a touchstone for pretty much all musicians, most musicians. So what other projects are on deck for Catalyst Quartet other than Volume 4 of Uncovered?
My goodness. Well, we have our CQ Minute project that we just unveiled last season, which we're playing a lot of. And that is a recording project and commissioning project that we decided to come up with because we wanted to fill our dwindling attention spans, which are, I think, around 2 minutes and less, with the best content possible. So we decided to commission composers like Joan Tower and Caroline Shaw and Paquito de Rivera, and wonderful young composers as well, to write music to fill that time, rather than just having soundscapes or something like that. And so we also held a national competition to promote the next generation of compositional voices as part of that project. So that is something recently that we've done, that we've put out there, and we'll probably hopefully add to it, because it was our 10th anniversary project, which was to be in 2020, but of course we were delayed a bit. Right. So there are actually 11 of those. Next month, we're unveiling a new collaboration with the incredible ballet dancer Herman Cornejo from American Ballet Theater. And that is another arrangement of ours, our Piazzolla Angel Suite arrangement, which is a 4-movement arrangement. And he is choreographing a ballet, which he will dance with us live.
Wow.
And we're doing that at the Metropolitan Museum of Art here in New York, where we are the quartet in residence. So that's the next big thing. And then there's a lot of just playing concerts and looking forward to Pathways for Volume 4 of Uncovered.
Yeah. It's kind of nice to be back out in the world playing for people, right? Where you can look them in the eye and hear them breathe.
Yeah, it is. We need more, and people need to come to concerts more.
Yeah.
I think the fact that we can have concerts is amazing, and we're so grateful for that. But I think there's still a sort of fright to go back to the concert hall. There's some kind of resistance there. Sure. So we're not seeing our concert halls as full as they could be. And I think we all need to work on that.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job of creating and providing some edifying and provocative and interesting and beautiful content and excellence, celebrating excellence. So I hope that people will hear more about it and will start coming out to attend.
Yeah. Yes, please do. That would be incredible. Thank you.
Well, I have been speaking on Zoom with cellist Karlos Rodriguez of the Catalyst Quartet about the group's multi-volume recording project called Uncovered. Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Pleasure is all mine.